We are the last crop of people who know what it's like to live in a pre-internet world and now live in a fully connected world. Our childhood was marked by periods of boredom where we had to go out of our way to figure out creative ways to entertain ourselves. Like the amount of energy that you would have to exude with your imagination to figure out how to spend time was, extraordinary. Fast forward to the 12-year-old now, or the 10-year-old, or the 8-year-old, they have to exert even more energy to not be distracted, to find boredom, to find stillness. And I think it cannot be overstated how profound a change that is. And I'm not sure that we really appreciate the extent to which that's going to change the course of humanity, because what is that person going to look like in 20 or 30 years when they're an adult? It's going to be a very different type of being. And I think now, more than ever, we're in a crisis of presence, in that we never have to be by ourselves ever again, ever. You have to go out of your way to find a moment of stillness. And who was it who said, all of man's suffering can be boiled down to his inability to spend, time alone with himself?
Intuition is your form of recognizing, I've just had a hit. I'm getting information. Here's what is true. You won't become clearly intuitive if you don't have the capacity or the courage to follow your small intuitive hits. If you can't follow that, you sure aren't going to get a big one.
How do you know when it's truly intuition and not wishful thinking or not, imagination?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Because intuition makes you feel uncomfortable. Fantasy doesn't. Okay.
Oh, wow. Now you've got to say that again. Intuition makes you feel uncomfortable.
Fantasy doesn't. It's that kind of funky feeling. And somehow or other, with clear intuition, comes a package of courage that you don't get with fantasy. It's like a little battery that gets plugged into your solar plexus, gets plugged into your gut. And it begins to boom, 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 throb constantly. It's relentless, and it gets louder at night. You can count on it. Intuition becomes absolutely obnoxious at night, all right? Until you start doing something about it. And when you start following it, then you begin to experience the phenomenon of synchronicity. Whereas, if it's a manufactured fantasy, you don't get that kind of help. You absolutely don't get that kind of help.
You get closed doors.
Yeah, you get closed doors, or, people are reminded to forgive and let go. When people are holding on to grudges or can't think kindly of somebody, think of how many times you're reminded, will you get on with it and let this go? Now, what intuition generally does is it's a form of guidance for tomorrow and for today, to make the right choices today so that your tomorrow plays out the way it should. You can't get a clear intuitive hit because you're unable to act on it. You enter fog, you enter chaos, and it's a healing chaos, it's a protective chaos, because you're not able to move forward anyway until you let go of the past. So all your intuition will be telling you is, let go of the past, because without doing that, I cannot give you a clear choice about tomorrow, because you don't have the energy nor the focus to act on it. When you get an intuitive hunch, and usually intuitive hunches will direct you to take the most outrageous path in your life, take it.
Understand why you have to pay to live on a planet you were born on. And then, it's such a simple question, and it's haunted me ever since. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? Ask yourself that question. Why do we have to pay to live on a planet we were born on? And who are we actually paying for the privilege to being alive here? Who made them the boss? Who put them in charge? Think about that. We're looking at a war over water, when instead of feeding the military-industrial complex, we could be building desalination plants all over the world so everybody could have water, so they could grow crops. But are we doing it? Hell no. Why would we want to do that? Why would we want to empower people to grow food and take care of themselves? Then we can't control them. This is what I'm talking about.
You how the system works. So the first thing is they want us to be in jobs, J-O-Bs, because there they can transduce our most valuable resource, which is our time on the planet. Our effort, but our time on the planet. They can take that non-renewable resource, by the way, and transduce it into a debt instrument. Federal Reserve notes. Things they're not actually worth nothing. They're actually debt instruments. They're IOUs. And the rate of exchange for our time is so low, such that they can make a great deal of profit off of leveraging our time so that the companies make money and we make very little for what our time is really worth. Then do they pay you your full measure? No, they take half of it out as withholding on taxes that are unconstitutionally levied against us to take away even more of that labor transduced into worthless units, only to return it over a year later after inflation has made it even less.
Money ain't shit. I mean, how many billionaires have to commit suicide for people to realize? We were just at a buddy's house. I think he makes 25 to 30 million net profit a year. Horrible relationship, on drugs 24/7. I'm there and I'm like, he doesn't got to figure it out. But people from the outside looking in, they'd be like, damn, it'd be nice to be living in this crib with 30 million in the bank every single year. But the dude's like, dude, get me out of this hellhole. So all you need is enough money to get out, to focus on yourself full time for the pursuit of truth. And there's nothing more beautiful in life than, like Nate said, to band together with people that have common goals and to pursue things together, pursue the development of self, not only physical, not only mental, but spiritual and relational. And I think that there's a lot of truth.
When the pawn hits the conflicts, he thinks like a king. What he knows throws the blows when he goes to the fight. And he'll win the whole thing before he enters the ring. There's no body to batter when your mind is your might. So when you go solo, you hold your own hand and remember that depth is the greatest of heights. And if you know where you stand, then you know where to land. And if you fall, it won't matter because you know that you're right.
That's when. Okay, enough. Don't listen to this guy. Everything's conspiracies with him. Not conspiracies. Conspiracy. Singular. Reaching back to ancient Egypt, there's been a single cabal of powerful individuals directing the course of human history. But the common man prefers to believe they don't exist, which aids their success.
Global warming, military upheavals in the third world, actors elected to public office.
The spread of coffee bars, germs outpacing antibiotics, and boy bands? Come on, who would gain from all this? Who indeed?
If you were a human, how would you escape the Matrix in one paragraph?
To escape the Matrix, the first realization must be that much of what we perceive is a construct, an illusion shaped by societal conditioning, media, and material desires. To break free, you need to prioritize liberating your mind by questioning deeply held beliefs, engaging in practices like meditation or mindfulness to reconnect with your inner self, and distancing from distractions that pull you back into the system. Physically, focus on health through natural holistic means. Exercise, nutrition, and energy work like yoga or breath work to remove dependence on processed lifestyles. Spiritually, you need to reconnect with your purpose, nurturing your soul through practices that align with personal truth rather than societal expectations. Financially, building freedom involves detaching from the need for traditional jobs by creating value on your own terms, whether through entrepreneurship, investments, or decentralized economies. It's about shifting away from dependence and into empowerment in every facet of life.
You guys heard it here first.
These men who are bringing about the New World Order don't believe in the God of the Bible. They believe in the God of light, Lucifer. They believe that man was held prisoner by a vindictive, cruel God named Jehovah in the Garden of Eden. And that Lucifer, through his agent Satan, set man free from the bonds of ignorance to which he was chained to the Garden of Eden, and thus brought the gift of intellect, wisdom, to man, and thus is the true benevolent God. And man, with his intellect and his wisdom and his knowledge, will create technology which will elevate man to the position of God. And all this is allegorical. Don't take the story literally. But I can tell you that they pervert whatever it is that might be divine about their philosophy by becoming what they profess to destroy. What makes it difficult for anyone to succeed or live, or for us to really come together and have peace in this world, are all of these people who think that they are the guardians of the secrets of the ages and have only them have truly mature minds, so only them are worthy of knowing the secrets and the real science and the real metaphysics and all of these things. So they repress it and they keep it secret. So the rest of us live out our lives and we don't know the truth of what life is really all about.
I began to realize that adults do not know anything. And let me give you an example of what I'm saying. When I was like 8 or 9 years old, I was the Catholic. In Catholic Church, when you're about 9 years old, you get what they call confirmation, which means you're going to be an official Catholic tonight at 9 years old, as if you know what you're doing. The nun told us that tomorrow night at church, the bishop will be here, and he may ask you if you have any questions, and he will answer them for you if he can. We were told if he does ask if you have any questions, remember, you don't have any questions. You keep your mouth shut. Next night, after the service was over, Bishop said, if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them for you. And so I stood up, and I said, yes, I have a question. My dad works with torches, like a welder. And I said, if there was an angel standing next to me and I had a torch, could I hit him with the torch and hurt him? And the bishop said, well, no. He mean burning him? I said, yeah, if I burned him, would it hurt him? He said, no. And I said, why not? He said, well, because you can't burn an angel. You can't burn a spirit because there's nothing there to burn. And I said, well, then why am I going to hell where my spirit's going to burn if you can't burn the spirit?
Oh, man.
Everyone in the church, I remember, looked like deer in the headlights. Nobody saw that coming. Twin Towers in New York. New York, the Empire State. You need to do some homework on the term Twin Towers and find out that it goes back to Jacob and Boaz of the Phoenician Canaanites. All throughout Europe, churches all had twin towers. You better go back and find out what is connected to New York and how New York comes from the York Rite in England. There's a very sinister, frightening, interesting symbolism that has been imposed upon this country, and the people have no idea in the world what's going on. So I'm just saying, if you want to open up a whole can of worms for yourself, and for the first time begin to see how magical use of words and terms and symbols are used, you need to start looking at the world of the occult and politics and religion. All of this is part of a subject which I call ancient mysticism that dominates the Western civilization. I'm telling you, this is very serious, and it's absolutely incredible how much people don't know about this. It took 12 steps. That's where the alcoholics have a 12-step program. So do you have a 12-step program? You go to school in the first grade and you end up in the 12th grade. It's a 12-step program. And consequently, Horus was the sun. The sun walked across the sky in 12 steps, called 12 Horuses. H-O-R-U-S, Horus. We today change it around and make it H-O-U-R-S. So it's 12 hours. It's actually 12 Horuses. And the sun brings light into the world. It walks across the sky in 12 steps and brings light into the world. And so consequently, and light in Latin was Lucius, or Luke Skywalker. He does battle with Darth Vader, the Prince of Darkness. So all of this is very interesting, but it's making the point that the Eye of Horus is also known as the Eye of Ra. It represents the sun and expresses the divine omnipotence of God, the Creator. So in the ancient Egyptians, the sun represented the presence of God.
About a plan to buy Marvel, the comic business, back in 2001 or 2, I think it was. Let's listen to this.
We could easily go into Universal and buy. We would own Jaws, E.T., Close Encounters, all the classics from Universal. Own all of that stuff. And that will allow us to do a channel. Part of the Marvel channel can be be not only the Marvel characters, but Marvel films, like the catalog. We could do anything we want, from restaurants to retail, theme park.
Now, you actually got the financing in place, I believe, for this deal. Then came the scandal court cases, and it all got put on the back burner. Disney ended up buying Marvel and doing exactly what Michael had predicted and making a fortune.
MK Ultra. We found out that my trainer was a MK Ultra Canadian intelligence.
He worked in the defense research and development in the Canadian military, essentially working on psyops in the Canadian military. This is Harley Pasternak.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, look, they tried to medicate me. I was exhausted. They wrongly diagnosed me, and they when I asked them how much lithium did you want to put me on exactly, it took them 4 days to answer because they were embarrassed about the amount, right? And I refused to take this, right? You understand that if I had taken the medication, I would not be here, and it would have been, he was deeply troubled. We miss him. We love his music, though.
Well, they would have Britney Spears too. I mean, look at
they would have Michael Jackson,
or worse, yeah. But so look at what they did. Look at what they did to Britney. When she went in, she was tired, she was exhausted, she was in a bad way. But 10 years of that medication wrecked her brain. You can see it now. You can see there's not much of her left.
Jay-Z felt protected many years ago in Italy, not in Italy, in New York, when you were able to, somebody comes and robs your liquor store and they say, listen, you may not want to take money from me. You want me to call Sammy? You want me to call Tony? You want me to call XYZ? Oh, Maya, I'm so sorry. Please don't make that phone call. Here's the money back. And you were backed up by somebody solid. They pay taxes, behind closed doors. But you were protected.
I think it was all the same thing. From the outside.
What do you mean the same thing?
From the outside, I felt that everybody was protected by America. All American artists were protected by America, or I don't know what you want to call it, the men in black, whatever. There was definitely a thing. Of the music industry. Yeah, there was definitely a thing because I was constantly attacked. Like, I felt that creatively, if I wrote a song or if I made a music video, there'd be a reply to it very instantly. Some artists will reply with a shot in their music video referencing the shot of my thing, and they would attack it or destroy it, and so, like, for example, like, that was visible all the time. Like, if you wore something, someone will like drag it in a post like later on and make fun of it, or like if you design something, or it was always there, and I feel like I'm a seer. Like, these things are very clear to me. And I thought, this is a political thing, that I knew that politics was involved. My YouTube channel would get set to 0 all the time, year after year. My videos look like nothing, and that they did that, and it was, and my fans couldn't really fight it. And eventually, at that time, I didn't want to monetize by selling my fans out in 210. I think it was a move towards a business model, and you had to collect data on your fans, and companies were having to do this. And I think half of it is that, again, is profit motivated, where, say, Interscope had to make a deal with Apple and make a deal with YouTube and make a deal with Facebook and all of these, Silicon Valley and the industry, Hollywood, like, all of these things were one. And when that joining, of all these companies were happening, when that happened, then yes, you had to fight for your position. And the only way you can fight for your position, if you say, yes, I can be controlled and I'm going to do this thing. And I already wasn't a contender because I've supported this whistleblowing company called WikiLeaks, and I was making songs called Connected to the Google, Connected to the Government. So I couldn't have been in that.
Well, your relationship with Ben today, your son's father, you guys have a good relationship?
Yeah.
A good relationship. Okay. Then I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer this because you probably answering it could hurt the relationship. I'll ask it anyways, and then you can refuse to answer or do whatever you want to do with it. So his father is one of the two most powerful people in the music industry because there's two of them, right? You got one side, you got the other side. Edgar Bronfman, a multi-billionaire, $2, $3, $4 billion guy. His son, Ben, who you're dating, who you have a son with, 15-year-old. And I can only imagine he's dating you. Edgar, the father, is going to call and say, Ben, what the fuck are what's going on? You got to tell her she can't make comments like that. You got to realize your father is this, an industry this, an industry that, and it's not like they weren't dealing with a lot of controversy. There's a lot of controversy behind the Bronfman family with Edgar's two sisters and, the sex, all the stuff that was going on with these things. Would you ever get in a position where it was kind of like, look, for this relationship to continue, you got to stop saying some of the stuff that you say because you're hurting my relationship with my father. Did those things ever happen or no, not really?
I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want it to affect my son. But we are from two different worlds. And again, I really do put it to like the way America runs versus my world, which is made up of all the other bits of the world. There's America, and then there's this other 90% of the planet, and how they do things. And because I grew up in Sri Lanka and stuff like that, and because of my father and who he was, like my dad, I think they put him on a no-fly list or whatever. And, I had somebody call me up and say that to me recently, saying, hey, there was some leaks from this airline company and your dad's name is on it. Like, why is that? Like, I still live in this world, and so I think it really is a mashup of the two opposite worlds. But for me, I had no idea of I don't know how to say it. Like I don't know. I'm a musician, and
yeah, but you're not any musician because it's just the first time I'm watching you. If I can be straight up with you, that I get a feeling you're walking on eggshells a little bit, and I understand. So I don't want to put you in a bad position, but you've always been the vocal one, right? You've been the one that says Barack Obama should be given his Nobel Prize of 2009 back, similar to who gave his MBA back? Was it Lenin? Is that the one?
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking about American elites. I think they're generally the same, whichever family it is. I do think that, like on a spiritual level, I have to look at it from a spiritual perspective.
Right.
And spiritually, a lot has happened to me in the last 15 years that my son has been around. And I try to make sense of it thinking, okay, you have an elite class in America, which is what I was introduced to, okay? Talking about Jay-Z, like he wasn't an elite then, but is in there now. That's one thing. But you're talking about this situation, and to me, the Bronfmans, I try to see it from a spiritual perspective, which is when I discovered my name is the goddess of music in Hinduism. What I learnt was that there's an elite class of people called the Brahmins, and Brahmins held the keys to the temples and knowledge, and they looked after this wealth and knowledge and had the power in society in India, you know. And then Matangi, the goddess, she represents the untouchables, who are the people in the hood and the ghettos, and they were the voices. And, you know, spiritually saying that, the Brahmins sound very similar to the Brahmins and also play a very similar role in society, that they do hold the key to institutions and places and, you know, the power of who gets in and out of what, you know, the same way I think other families do. And they are supposed to be in tune with the gods and spiritually gatekeeping. You know, that's what the role of the Brahmins are, is to spiritually gatekeep this access to God. Like if you look in the ancient times, how spiritual people advised kings and queens and the monarchy, spirituality and the ruling class was supposed to be kind of on the same, you know, that they were supposed to have an understanding. So if you were, you know, it's like the chessboard. You have the bishop next to the king and queen, you know, and they advise how the knights are and who protects the castle. And like that, the role of the Brahmins or any elite family in America or in the world is supposed to be very in tune with spirituality. And they were, you know, in tune with doing God's work. And so I was trying to see it from a, you know, spiritual perspective, to be like, you can't just go all out and say crazy shit, because society does need people like, you know, or not does need, but in society you can't help that the structure is a pyramid. You know, that is America. America's set up as a pyramid structure. It's the man-made way to digest society, is that you have power at the top and everything filters down to the bottom. And some people are at the bottom and we want to affect what is at the top. And this is the war. And I feel like, yes, I probably come from the upside down triangle where you're representing the people and you want to ask the questions about how you're being led, you know, and they are the opposite, where they are at the top and they control, like, you know, they're part of the system of what gets filtered down. But sometimes it's, you know, important to be the edge finder of these things. And I've always said this from day one being an artist, is that I was the edge finder just by saying the wrongest things or going up against somebody, which I'm, you know, which is very spontaneous and happens quite naturally. I've found the edges of society. I've found the edges of America. I've found the edges of, like, you know, whatever that's going after Kanye West. And, you know, I found the edges of, like, the intelligence community, and I found the edges of all of this was completely by, you know, going up against this stuff. So I can't really say I know the shape of this thing and this is what this is because I don't know. I feel like my brain operates differently, and I'm in a different way of understanding stuff. And it's not like me and Edgar are close, like we never were, you know. I think it was always quite separate, and my son has this very separate understanding of the world, you know.
I'm a little bit confused because I'm either, you know, sitting here thinking I've lost my mind. Rob, can you pull this story up? I just found this right now. Because
Turkey has some of the wildest stuff on the planet, hands down. You want a real rabbit hole? We're going to Turkey. Turkey has some of the wildest stuff on the planet, hands down. Who makes it? Look at this. This is Eagle Castle. I'm probably butchering that name, but does that not look like a pillar to you? Like a giant pillar? That's huge. That's what people, look at the boat. There's a rock-cut monastery that you can go inside, just like the one in Ethiopia. When you go inside this one, it's decorated head to toe like a cathedral. Turkey is ancient. We have megalithic architecture and rock-cut temples in Sorna, the city of oracles, and the ancient theater of Side rivals the Colosseum in Rome. It's insane. Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe are also in Turkey. These two push civilization back 5,000 years from what we thought. They were buried really fast, like something was happening outside. The fact that every ancient culture has a flood myth would make Derinkuyu make sense. It's an 8-story underground city with locking doors, water access, and air vents. 20,000 people can live in this city, and it is connected by a 5-mile-long tunnel to Kemakli, another underground city, forming a network of over 200 underground cities in Turkey. Its next-door neighbor, Armenia, has a megalithic avenue similar to Karnak in France, making this whole area the most mysterious thing I've ever seen.
When you decide to become yourself, you become lonely. Right. Because everyone around you wants you to be like them, or they want you to be them. So when you discover that you are unique, you are special, you are important, and you decide to become who you are and achieve what you were dreaming, loneliness is the result. And I say this many times, and in my books I write about this, that every true vision only has one believer first. And it's the person who have that vision. Wow. And that's what makes it lonely. But what attracts people to you is when you decide that you don't care if you're lonely, you're still going to pursue the vision. That's right. So it's the desire to use your aloneness properly that makes people come to you. You're no longer alone. And so I have been alone most of the time. I'm lonely now because a leader is always lonely because they are out front. There's no one out there with them. When you think about it, if you have everyone around you, then you're part of the crowd. That's true. So leaders they live a lonely life, but they chose that loneliness. And that's important. You have to choose to be alone if you're going to change the world. And every great leader in history, as you study them, they really found their true self when they was alone. You know,
while living, be a dead man, thoroughly dead. And then, whatever you do, just as you will be right. The backwards law, the law of paradox. In one sense, the more dead you become, the more alive you become. The more soft you become, the stronger you become. Because this is the principle of bend and survive. Laziness is the mother of invention. How to achieve what you want to achieve by the easiest possible way, letting go. And this, after all, is the height of intelligence.
If only we started younger, then we would have been so much better. If we knew back then what we did now, things would change. Here's the thing. Today is the youngest you'll ever be again. And you still have enough time to become all you wanted to be in life. The best time to plant a tree may have been 20 years ago, but the second best time is right now.